Welcome to this episode of the Pure Passion Biz Podcast with Akua Hinds, and I'm your host, Akua Hinds. Thank you for watching. I'm here today with my guest, Christelle Biiga. Christelle is the founder and CEO of Exposure Maven, and what she does is she helps guests and she helps individuals to get themselves promoted, get themselves seen on podcasts. Christelle, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy and honored to be here today.
Oh, you're most welcome, and thank you. So can you tell me, when you are deciding which type of podcast you want your guests to appear on, what is the process for making that decision?
Yes, so the process is really simple. So when we have a new client, they have a form that they complete with all the information about their business, the audience that they serve, the topics they speak on. And once they complete that information, we now have enough to create their pitches and know the right podcast for them. So we don't just randomly go for podcasts. And I say this for the listeners and the viewers. When you want to get on podcasts, you really want to make sure that you are researching podcasts in your niche first, and podcasts where you can serve the listeners, where your expertise is what the host and the listeners are looking for. So once we have that information from our clients, we then research the right shows to make sure that there is a match. And we only book our clients on top 5% podcasts. And to have that information, I don't mind sharing that with the audience. There are places where you can check the global ranking of podcasts. The free one is listennotes.com. And the other one, which is paid, but I think they have a trial, you can check it out as well, is called rephonic.com. So those two places give you global ranking of each shows, and they get that information based on the numbers of subscribers, downloads per episode within the first 7 days, and activity on shows. They search all the platforms. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all really the places where podcasts are being, shared. Based on the numbers of those shows, they do the global ranking. It's not always accurate. It doesn't, because sometimes people ask me, how do I know I will have this many listeners for my interview? There is really not a good way to do that, to know that. But we focus on the top 5% shows because at least for a show to make it to the top 5%, they have to have at least 1,100 downloads within the first week of the interview released. So I think that's a good number. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to reach a large audience, that number is not bad, right? If 1,000 people hear your message, that's 1,000 more people than your actual audience right now. And the beauty of that is that you know that those listeners are engaged and you have their attention. It's not just random 1,000 followers on social media scrolling and maybe not even seeing your post. They came to listen to that conversation, so you have their attention. So that's a good number. So those are shows we get our clients on. So once we find the right shows, we do the pitching. And if you want to do it, don't do a random pitching, right? Don't copy and paste pitches for all the shows out there. Really personalize your pitching for each show based on the description, based on maybe past guests that they have had on the show. You want to really make sure that you are pitching the right shows, and you are providing value. You are telling the host that you will bring value to their listeners. So when you craft your pitches that way, pay attention. Make sure that it's not just a copy and paste. They know hosts hate that. So make sure that you are speaking to them and you are thinking about their audience. So we do that pitching. And then if you also, after pitching, you want to prepare, right? Let's say you pitched and you got a yes from a host. Now the next step is to prepare for the interview. You want to listen to a few, one or two conversations to get a sense of the host energy and the vibe of the show to really come and match that. And you also want to prepare for the topic that you pitched. Be ready and have answers ready to provide value to the listeners. When you get on the show as a guest, you also want to keep in mind that yes, you're having a one-on-one conversation with a host, but you have listeners that you don't see in the room at that very moment, but keep them in mind during that conversation. That's really the best way for you to get them interested and wanting to reach out or find out more about you after the interview. So I know I said more than just how to find the right shows or how to pitch yourself, but really when you have all those pieces in mind, you will know what type of shows to pitch, right? Some hosts will not even respond to you if you are pitching the wrong show. They will just know you are not serious in what you're doing. So you want to make sure that you are pitching the shows that are interested or looking for your expertise.
Very wise nuggets of advice. Now, I really like what you said too, especially about how you have to keep the audience in mind, even though the audience isn't in front of you, the audience is watching. And most podcasts are available to watch after it originally airs. So an audience member could be watching from anywhere in the world, maybe a week later, maybe a month later. Do you ever recommend that your clients who you book to go on podcasts offer some type of a giveaway or an incentive when they go on podcasts that the audience can make use of within a certain time period?
Yes, absolutely. That's part of what I do with them during our strategy session. Even though my service is done for you, really, my clients see me one time and they sit back, they relax, my team takes care of everything, they just show up for their interviews. But during that initial strategy session with them, we review those things. What do they offer when they go on shows? What is their call to action? And we make sure that they are prepared, because the goal for any entrepreneur, if you're listening, if you are watching this, if you decide, if you want, or if you're interested in getting on podcast, you have a reason. Maybe you want to promote your book. Maybe you want to position yourself as the expert in your industry. Maybe you want to establish your authority. Whatever your reason is, you want to be prepared for the back end to match whatever you want to achieve. So if you want to promote your book, where do people find that book afterward? Do you have something to give them to maybe check it out? You have to have that system in place. It can be a simple landing page. It doesn't have to be something complicated. It can be maybe your website if you have one. Even if you don't have a website, I emphasize on that, because some people think, oh, I don't have a website yet, I'm not ready to get on podcast. I started getting on podcasts, I had no website. When I started my coaching business back in 2019, I had no website, I had nothing. So when I said I want to get on podcasts to promote my services, someone told me, nobody will want to have you as a guest. You don't even have a website. But I did anyway, because hosts don't care about those things. They care about your expertise. They care about your story. They care about the value that you provide to their listeners. Now, when you know that, okay, my expertise is nailed down and my story is great, it inspires people, it really makes the impact, you also want to be strategic. What do you want people to do afterwards? Do you want them to check your website? Do you want them to go get your book on Amazon? Do you want them to join your Facebook group? Do you want them to download maybe a checklist or whatever freebie you have? Anything that will get people in your world is welcome. Really be prepared for that. Don't just consider podcast guesting as a random activity. It's a PR strategy. It's a marketing strategy. You are promoting yourself. And I love how you mentioned that people can listen to that interview later. Actually, they can even listen to it years after the initial day or it airs. That's what you need to keep in mind. Right. I have an author who shared with me that they wrote a book 4 years ago, and 3 years after the initial day the interview aired, people were still downloading their book from that interview. She was still making sales from that interview she did 4 years ago. So you have to keep that in mind. So when you go there, don't say book a call on my calendar. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but don't do that, because first of all, when you get on a podcast, people know you're an expert. They take you seriously. So they don't feel really confident like that to get on your calendar straight up. They need something before. They need, to warm up. Not everybody feels confident to grab their phone. If Oprah said, "This is my phone number," not many people will dare to call Oprah, right? Maybe you're not Oprah, but you are an expert. So when they listen to you on a podcast, they know you are an authority. So when you say book a call on my calendar, some people may not book a call. Maybe they are interested in what you do, but they don't feel confident like that to have a conversation on the phone. That's really personal. So you want to make it easy for people to take the next step. So what is your call to action? We work on that with our clients. But if you are thinking of getting on podcast, prepare already for what your call to action will be. Do you have a Facebook group? Maybe you want them to join that group. Do you have a newsletter? Maybe you want them to subscribe. But whatever your call to action is, you want to show them the value. You want them to know that you are not just trying to get their emails. You want to give them something. You want, if they download whatever you're offering, maybe your checklist, what will they get? So don't just say, there's a link in the description, download my thing. No, they don't care about your thing. What is in it for them? So that call to action has to be clear on what it is that you will get from it. For example, I used to, when I go on podcasts, I used to share a list of 100 plus top 10% podcasts in different niches that if they download, they can use to start pitching. That's valuable for somebody who wants to start getting on podcasts and maybe don't know where to start with the research. That's something that they might be interested in, right? So that's a great reason for them to give me their email list. Right now, I'm promoting a quiz, a podcast readiness assessment. So are you ready to get on podcast? That quiz will allow you to know where you're standing, right? Maybe you're thinking about it. Maybe you think you are not ready. Maybe you think, but that assessment is a great way for you to have that question answered. Am I ready for this? Yes or no? And if not, what can I do? Because after you do the assessment, I should give you the next steps, what to do based on your level during the assessment, right? So those are things that are valuable for people who are interested in my services, right? So whatever your call to action is when you go on a podcast, think about the listeners. It's not about you. Think about why would they want to say yes to your offer? Why would they want to raise their hand? What is in it for them? And tell them that before telling them where to find that.
That's very, very insightful and all great things to consider. Now, here's something else that I'm wondering what your thoughts are on whether or not to consider paying a fee to be on a top rated podcast or not. I know that many podcasts, they will interview a guest free of charge, but there are some podcast hosts who charge a fee for appearing on their podcast and for distributing that podcast out. What advice do you have to share with someone who is considering those options?
Okay. A host actually asked me that question. They asked me, I was on their show, and then afterward, they emailed me asking me, well, I'm thinking about charging because I see other people charge for their, podcast interviews. What do you think? So I told her, it's your show. You do what you want to do, right? If you decide, I want people to pay me to be on my show, it's up to you. The truth is, the bigger show out there don't charge for people to be on them. No, again, no shade on the people who say, I want to be paid because this is my platform. I build the audience. I'm putting in the time. Fine by me. You do you. But just keep in mind that it's not because you're a big show. That's not the reason why people should pay you. You're free to charge, but don't make it about how big your show is, because the biggest shows out there, again, do not charge. What do they go for? They go for expertise. They go for quality guests. The biggest one everybody knows out there is Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan doesn't even take pitches, right? He has to know you. If he doesn't know you in his personal network, you have to be world known, like that famous, that impactful, that he will then want you on his show. So he doesn't care if he was like, oh, pay me to be here, I promise more people will be on his show, but he doesn't do that. And it's just one example. The biggest shows out there do not charge, and there is a reason for that. Because if you say, pay me, that means you don't go with who is going to give value to my audience. You don't care about that anymore. So that means as long as someone can afford the fee that you're charging, they can be on. Are they good enough? Are they experts in what they do? Are they going to actually provide value to the audience? That's not the requirement anymore. Now the requirement is, can they afford your fee? So again, people do what they want. That's fine. But I'm just saying it's not evidence that your show is big enough. So don't think, oh, my show is so great that now I have to charge. That's not the reason why. Charge whatever. Maybe you think you need to make money out of it, fine. But again, the only reason why a show is going to be in the top 5% or top 2% or top 0.001% is because they have listenership, they have a big audience, they have a lot of downloads on their shows. So, and those big shows do not charge. These are really selective on their guests. That's why now, for the listeners who are, watching this, you want to really position yourself in your pitches as an expert, because again, the biggest shows go for quality. They don't want their names to be associated with random people who don't even know what they're talking about. That's why they will not even answer to some pitches. So you really have to prove them your value. You really have to prove them what you bring to the table. You really have to prove them in your pitch. Why will they introduce you to their audience as an expert? Because that introduction is powerful.
Most definitely. I completely agree with that. And I think that what other podcast hosts do, the ones who don't charge, what they tend to do is they create their own way of getting advertising dollars through becoming affiliates of products and services, and they promote those products and services to their podcast audience. They don't, instead of charging guests, that's how they would prefer to do it. And so,
yeah, there are so many ways to monetize, really. You can have advertisement. Even before that, you can promote yourself. So I used to have a podcast back in 2021, and I wasn't charging guests, but I was promoting my coaching services. It's your show. Right now, for example, I'm doing videos for YouTube. It's my channel. So I take ad breaks to promote my services. So when you have a podcast, there are so many ways that you can promote yourself and make money, that recharging guests is not the only way. You can choose to do that, again, no shade, but don't be limited to, oh, I need them to pay me so that I can make money. There are so many ways. You mentioned it, affiliates. You can have so many links in your description to promote whatever, to be an affiliate for whatever. You can take an ad break and promote whatever service you offer. If you're a coach, you can have a break during the interview and promote your services. It's your show. You do whatever you want. You sell whatever you want to sell. But again, if you provide value and that the audience love what you do, they will be interested in what you offer. So really stay open-minded and know that there are many avenues to make money, but do not trade the value of the guests that you have on your show based on the fact that, oh, are they paying me or not? Because again, it's not the most talented that will always pay. Some of them will, but sometimes people will pay because that's the only way they can get on the show. That's the only way. If it's just pitch, nobody will nobody will find their pitch valuable enough. But now it's easier for them to just pay and be on any show because they were willing to spend that money. Think about it. Really, are they bringing, beyond the payment, what other requirements do they need to have for you to introduce them to your audience?
yes, so all very important things to consider. Well, Christelle, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with my viewers. And thank you for appearing on the Pure Passion Biz podcast. To everyone who's watching right now, thank you for watching. And I will see you next time.